On the 52nd floor of the State Street Financial Center, the world felt both endless and suffocating. Melanie Wilson sat behind her polished mahogany desk, the twilight Boston skyline stretching across the horizon through floor-to-ceiling windows. The Charles River shimmered faintly in the fading light, while the Prudential Tower and Hancock Building glowed like sentinels of ambition. Yet inside, the fluorescent lights and the blinking notification bar on her computer pulled her back into reality. Her desk was littered with investment analysis reports, post-it reminders, and unopened envelopes. On her monitor, the number 20 glared at her, unread emails demanding her immediate attention. But Melanie's mind was not on equities, asset allocations, or client portfolios. She rubbed her temples, already exhausted, even though the night was far from over. "Miss Wilson, about the Anderson family's asset allocation review," her colleague Michael began, stepping hesitantly into her office with a file in hand. Before Melanie could respond, her phone buzzed insistently across the desk. She glanced at the screen. Incoming call. Ashley, her sister. Again, the third time today. Melanie exhaled slowly, a sigh that carried years of quiet endurance. "I'm sorry, Michael, it's my sister," she said, picking up the phone. Ashley's voice burst through the receiver like a firecracker. "Sis, are you free? I found the most adorable dress. It's perfect for Instagram. My followers will die. You just have to see it." Melanie closed her eyes, the skyline blurring into a smear of color. "Ashley, I'm at work right now. Please." Ashley cut her off, her tone wheedling but playful. "I need this. My followers are growing. And if I post this dress, it'll blow up. It's all about timing. You understand, right? You've always supported me." Melanie pinched the bridge of her nose, her shoulders tightening under the weight of invisible chains. She had heard this plea 100 times in 100 different forms, always urgent, always necessary. "All right," she murmured, her voice flat. "What's the budget this time?" "Just $3,000, Ashley chirped, as if announcing a bargain at a department store. "That's a steal, right?" Melanie didn't answer immediately. In her mind, numbers cascaded like falling dominoes: her parents' mortgage payments, Ashley's failed startup funds, the endless monthly allowances. She had been the quiet financier of everyone else's dreams, the silent pillar holding up a family that barely noticed her fatigue. With a heavy breath, she pulled out her credit card details and sent them. "Thanks, sis, you're the best. I'll tag you when I post it," Ashley squealed before hanging up. The silence that followed was heavier than the call itself. That evening, at her parents' elegant colonial-style home in Newton, the family gathered around the long oak dining table. The familiar aroma of roasted chicken, fresh bread, and her mother's signature apple pie filled the air. On the surface, it was warmth and tradition, but Melanie knew better. "Look." Ashley stood up, twirling in the sparkling new dress. The fabric shimmered beneath the chandelier light as her phone screen lit up with likes and hearts. "It already got 500 likes on Instagram, and I just posted it an hour ago." Carol, their mother, beamed. "That's wonderful, Ashley. Your dedication to pursuing your dreams is admirable." Robert, their father, chuckled proudly, raising his wine glass. "Our daughter really has a talent for social media. Who needs Wall Street when you've got followers, Melanie said nothing. She kept her gaze on the mashed potatoes on her plate, silently moving them around with her fork. The conversation flowed around her like water, always spotlighting Ashley, her travels, her collaborations, her success. Melanie was a guest in her own family's celebration. "By the way, how are the wedding preparations with James going?" her mother asked suddenly, her eyes glittering with expectation. For the first time all evening, Melanie's face brightened. "Wonderful. We've secured the Fairmont Copley Plaza for the ceremony." Her mother clapped her hands, delighted. "Oh, my, that's the finest hotel in Boston. Such a perfect choice." Robert tilted his glass thoughtfully. "Typical Morrison family style. Extravagant. That medical equipment empire of theirs sure knows how to show off." "Dad," Melanie said softly, her voice carrying a quiet plea, "James and we don't care about such things." "But isn't it important?" he pressed. "Social status matters. Melanie, you're marrying into their world now." Before Melanie could answer, Ashley leaned in, grinning mischievously. Hey, can I do an Instagram live during the wedding? Imagine the engagement. It'll be iconic. Melanie set her fork down. Exhaling slowly, she glanced out the dining room window, where the spring breeze scattered cherry blossoms onto the lawn. She didn't respond right away. Let me think about it, she said finally. Later that evening, as she slipped on her coat to leave, her mother hugged her tightly at the door. You're such a good girl, Carol whispered, her eyes misty, always putting family first. Melanie nodded without a word, but as she sat alone in her car, staring at the warm lights glowing from her parents' windows, the reflection in her rearview mirror showed her something else, a woman who had carried everyone else's burdens for a decade. Late that night, her phone buzzed, a message from James. Working late again? No, I was at my parents'. Family time is important. How about dinner with my parents this Sunday? Melanie smiled faintly at the screen. Meeting James had been a twist of fate. She remembered their first encounter at a charity gala, his gentle smile, his grounded presence in a room full of arrogance. He had seen her, not just her resume or her obligations. For once, she hadn't felt invisible. Looking now at the Fairmont Copley Plaza photos saved on her phone, Melanie allowed herself to dream. A future, a family of her own, a fresh beginning. The ballroom was filled with applause and clinking glasses. One by one, people rose to speak, colleagues of James's from the hospital, fellow doctors whose charitable foundations were intertwined with the Morrison legacy, even childhood friends who had watched him grow into the man he had become. Finally, Elizabeth Morrison, elegant in a deep navy gown, stood to address the room. Today, she said, her voice clear and steady, we welcomed a new member into our family, Melanie. From this day forward, you are not just James's wife. You are a Morrison, and I want you to know, we deeply respect your strength and dignity. The words wrapped around Melanie like a warm cloak. She smiled politely, though her heart carried a quiet ache that no one in this glittering ballroom could see. As the celebration continued into the night, James guided her back to the dance floor for the final waltz. He leaned close, whispering so only she could hear, you were an amazing bride today. I'm proud of you. For the first time since the morning, Melanie allowed herself to crumble just a little. She buried her face against his chest, and the tears she had held back all day finally escaped, warm and silent. From the window of their new condominium in Back Bay, the city spread before them in shimmering lights. The Charles River glistened under the setting sun, a view worthy of postcards. But Melanie wasn't looking at the skyline. She was staring at her phone. 50 missed calls, all from her family. James appeared beside her with 2 wine glasses, pressing one gently into her hand. Better not look at those right now, he said softly. His tone wasn't unkind, only protective. The living room around them was still cluttered with unopened wedding gifts, crystal, silver, luxury items wrapped in ribbons from high-end department stores. Each gift carried the Morrison family's network, a world of refinement and influence far removed from the modest home in Newton where she had grown up. Why? Melanie whispered, her reflection trembling in the glass. Why did they use my miles? James set down his glass and put his arm around her shoulders. You made the right choice today, he said. His voice was firm but gentle. But this, Melanie, this is only the beginning. At the time, she didn't understand what he meant. But soon, the truth revealed itself. The next morning at her office, an email appeared in her inbox. Notice of removal from the Charitable Activities Committee, Boston Children's Hospital Board of Trustees. Melanie stared at the screen in disbelief. The committee had been her small but meaningful way to contribute beyond finance, her bridge into the Morrison family's world of philanthropy. Now, without warning, she had been erased. By afternoon, calls came in from clients. Prominent figures in Boston real estate were pulling out of deals with Wilson Real Estate, one after another. Her father's company, long respected if not the most powerful, was suddenly radioactive. Then the Boston Globe published a small column. At first glance, it seemed insignificant, but Melanie's hands shook as she read the headline, Report on Fraudulent Mileage Acquisition. The article detailed an ongoing investigation into abuse of airline loyalty programs. Attached documents from the credit card company landed in her inbox later that evening. They laid everything bare. 5 million miles accumulated fraudulently over 2 years. The transactions, the collusion with brokers, the names, Ashley's fingerprints were everywhere. But her parents had known. They had approved. Melanie pressed her head into her hands. Why didn't I see this? Why didn't I stop it? Elizabeth's voice, calm and steady, reached her later that evening when Melanie shared the news. Because you believed in them. Belief isn't wrong, Melanie. Misuse of it is. But the storm only grew darker. Within days, Wilson real estate collapsed. Contracts dissolved. Partners fled. And the Morrison family's silent influence in Boston society became visible. Doors closed quickly on those who had chosen betrayal. On social media, Ashley's empire cracked. Followers unfollowed in droves. Sponsorships were cancelled. And comments turned cruel. They did this to themselves. William Morrison said bluntly at a family gathering, "This is justice, not punishment." But the most devastating blow came on a Sunday morning. Melanie's phone rang. A number from Hawaii. "This is the staff at the Breakers Resort," the voice said. "Mr. and Mrs. Wilson have been in an accident. They're in intensive care." Melanie's blood ran cold. "We'll arrange for their insurance," she began. "I'm sorry," the staff member interrupted gently. "Their medical insurance appears to have been cancelled. It is invalid." It was the Morrison family's final severing stroke. "What should I do?" Melanie whispered, her voice breaking for the first time in years. Elizabeth looked her in the eye. "We'll support you, Melanie, but not for them, for you." At the Breakers Hospital in Hawaii, the air smelled of antiseptic and salt air. Machines beeped in steady rhythm, a reminder of fragile life clinging to its thread. "The situation is very serious," the attending physician explained. "Your father will need immediate head surgery. Without insurance, the cost is approximately $800,000. James inhaled sharply beside her. "Melanie, this is—" "I'll pay," she said quickly. Her voice was quiet but unwavering. "Melanie," James tried to stop her. "This is my decision." Through the glass window of the ICU, she saw her parents, once strong, once untouchable, now pale and motionless. In a corner, Ashley sat, mascara streaked down her cheeks, sobbing into her hands. By afternoon, the news reached Boston. Wilson Real Estate to sell all properties immediately. Employees resigned in waves. The Wilson empire crumbled. Melanie liquidated everything, her savings, her stocks, even put the new condominium up for sale. Yet still, it wasn't enough. And then, the inevitable. "Code Blue," shouted nurses as alarms pierced the corridor. Melanie could only stand frozen, helpless, as doctors rushed in. Hours later, they stabilized her father, but the future remained grim. Back in Boston, a late-night meeting was convened in the Morrison mansion. William's voice was cold but not unkind. "You cannot keep doing this, Melanie. They betrayed you, and now they expect your sacrifice. No more." Elizabeth added, her tone firm. "Love doesn't mean carrying someone else's sins forever." Just then, a new notification flashed across Melanie's phone. "Indictment filed, fraudulent mileage acquisition." The names listed: Ashley Wilson, Robert Wilson, Carol Wilson. Her hand trembled. The next morning's Boston Globe confirmed it. Her family, indicted. Ashley's mugshot circulated, her sunglasses failing to hide her hollow face. Her Instagram, once glittering, dropped to mere hundreds of followers. Sponsor lawsuits poured in. At church, her parents' names vanished from the prayer list. Their Newton home, once a place of Sunday dinners, now sat in silence as foreclosure loomed. 3 months later, autumn painted Boston in shades of amber and gold. From her new office overlooking the city, Melanie prepared for a board meeting at Boston Children's Hospital. She was now a core member of the Pediatric Medical Center project, using her financial expertise to secure its future. As she walked the corridor with Elizabeth, a headline in the newspaper caught her eye: former social media influencer sentenced for fraud, parents receive suspended sentences as co-conspirators. Elizabeth gently touched her arm. "Don't look back. You're in a different life now." At that evening's dinner in the Morrison mansion, wine glasses clinked. William raised his in a toast to the success of the new pediatric medical center. Elizabeth added, "And to our precious family." Melanie's fingers brushed the pearl necklace resting against her collarbone, the Morrison heirloom given to her on her wedding morning. It no longer felt heavy. It felt like home. Weeks later, a letter arrived. The handwriting was shaky but familiar. From Phoenix. To my beloved daughter. We betrayed you. On your wedding day, when we should have stood proudly by your side, we turned away. That is a regret we will never escape. We live now in a small apartment. Your father works as a clerk. Ashley is in a rehabilitation program in prison. This is our punishment, and perhaps our chance to learn humility. We will never again interfere with your life. Please forgive us. If not today, then perhaps someday. Love, Mom. A single tear slipped down Melanie's cheek. You don't need to read it, James said gently, appearing beside her. I wanted to, she whispered. Now I can let it go. One bright morning, as they jogged together along the Charles River, James spoke of new dreams. I want to build a house beside the pediatric medical center, a place for children and families who come from far away, a home when they need it most. Melanie smiled. Then we'll do it, together. The golden light of dawn spread across the water, a promise of beginnings. Later that day, at the hospital, Melanie knelt beside a little girl awaiting surgery. The child's small hand trembled in hers. I'm scared, the girl whispered. Melanie squeezed gently. It's all right. You have family here, and true family never leaves you. Outside, the autumn leaves danced in the wind, settling softly onto the earth, quietly announcing the start of a new story.